First of all, I want to tell you some very basic things, right? About the early in the game, what you have to do and what you shouldn't do. That's very important, and you always keep that in mind. Okay, here is a chessboard, right? They are all 64 squares, but there are 4 of them that are a lot more important than the other 60. You know which they are?
The center.
The center, absolutely correct, yes. This is what we call the center, right? Those 4 squares. And early in the game, whether you're playing black or with the white pieces, that's what you have to focus on. What does it mean? A, you want to put 1 or 2 pawns if you can there, in one of those 4 squares, or you want to attack it with your knights and bishops and pawns, right? So most of the time you would start the game either with pawn move to e4 or pawn move to d4. Both are equally good moves, right? Because it occupies the center and attacks another center square and opens up the bishop's diagonal. So you're accomplishing a lot of things here at the same time. Now let's say black plays g6. It's not a bad move, it's an opening, but it doesn't fight for the center right away. Now, when you're given that opportunity, what should you do?
D4.
D4, very good. Put another pawn in the center. That means you have full control of the center, right? You are having 2 of your pawns there, while black has none, and these 2 pawns attack also the other 2 center squares, which black can start fighting for, but in the meantime, white is doing good. Now, of course, black has to at least try to fight from the side, right? Bishop g7 is the best move because now the bishop attacks also 2 center squares. Very, very important. Now, what's the next thing we should do after we put the 2 pawns in the center?
Protect them.
Yes and no, yes?
Develop your pieces.
Develop your pieces in a way that they do what?
Can control the center.
Control the center, correct, absolutely. Now, normally, which side do you prefer to develop first? The king side or the queen side?
King side.
The king side. Why is that?
So you can castle.
So you can castle, absolutely correct, yes. You usually want to develop your king side first because on the king side, which is this part of the board, right, all of this side, there are only 2 pieces in between the king and the rook, and then you can castle quickly on this side, and we want to put our king in safety early, so the king will be in safety. Sometimes people decide to castle on the queen side, but that takes more time, because in that case you also need to remove your queen out of the way. So that is why, let's say knight to f3 would be a very good move. Now let's say black makes a silly move, right? Why is that move silly?
It doesn't control the center.
Because it does not control the center. It's good because it develops, but in the wrong direction. So sometimes developing in the wrong direction is worse than not developing it at all. Because if you don't develop it yet, you still have a potential of next move develop it in the right direction. But when you already went in the wrong direction, it's even more time to correct the mistake. Okay, so now we're ready to develop another piece, which should be the...
Sorry?
Which should be the next piece we develop?
Bishop.
The bishop, very good. The one on? Which bishop?
The king side.
The king side bishop, absolutely. Where should we develop it? C4. C4 is fine, or D3 is fine, right? Because both of them, this one controls the D5 center square, or D3 would control the E4 center square. Now, what do you think black should do? Castle, right. Black should castle, but black didn't. Black made a silly move, playing A5. Silly, right? It's laughable. That's what black did, ignoring the principles of chess. And you always get punished when you ignore the rules, right? That's not a good thing to do. Okay, so here, white is It's following the principles of chess, developing, putting the king in safety, right? So therefore, next move is
Castle.
castle, correct. Very good. So we're doing very, very well. And now, black made another silly move. Pushing the pawn up to a4, right? Now, this is bad because it didn't develop a new piece. And, as we know, you should not move the same piece twice early in the game. That's wasting time. As we did, we're moving one different piece every time, right? Developing all the pieces. So first you develop each of your pieces, and only later you regroup them to different places and improve their positions. Of course, what's an exception to that?
Knight to c3.
Well, knight to c3 is a good next move, but what's the exception to move the same piece a second time early in the game?
If it's going to like make a threat.
If it's being threatened, right? Let's think somebody would attack this bishop, the bishop would need to move, right? Or being defended. Okay, so knight c3, that's a very good next move, right? We're getting out. The knight controls the center squares again. Now a move that some beginner players would do, moving the rook out from the side. Not a good thing, right? The rooks don't come out from the side. That's very, very rare in chess when that happens. That's an exception when that's good. Usually, 99% of the time, that's a bad thing. What you're supposed to do, as White did, developed all the pieces, and then later in the game, you would trade eventually one of these two pawns, assuming that Black would also put a pawn in the center, as he should sooner or later, and that's how you open a file, right, by let's say these two disappearing, and then there would be an open file, and that's where the rook should come from the sides, this way, and not up that way, okay? So that's very important. Rooks don't come to the game from the side. No good. Okay, now we have one more minor piece to develop, the dark square bishop. Where should we put it?
f4.
F4, it's a perfect square, right? Nice harmony. White developed all the pieces in a nice shape.
Bull's head.
Sorry?
Is it the bull's head opening?
Bull's head opening? Yeah, it can be called like that too. Yeah. White is having a beautiful setup, beautiful control of the center. Okay, Black made another bad move, moving the knight in the wrong direction again. Right? No good. White is doing the right thing, Black is doing the wrong thing. Now, the next step is getting the queen out of the way in between the two rooks. That is how we connect rooks. Okay? And now, right away with this move, we also attack the knight, because there is a battery between the queen and the bishop. The bishop is threatening now to capture that knight on h6. So the knight has to move, or needs to be protected. The knight moved to g4. And really, this is only the part I wanted to show you about this opening of the game, because this is a principle, a guideline, how you should start each and every game. Don't get tempted to get your queen out early. No good. Don't try to win with getting the queen and the bishop out quickly. No good. Don't move the same piece a second time early in the game, or a third time. Right? Always develop your pieces looking towards the center. Okay? So that's the basic principles how you start out in a game. Now, in a normal situation, when your opponent plays better than this, as Black played in this game, the next thing you would do is open files. How do we open files? We open files by trading a pair of pawns, because that's where your rooks can get into the game. So that's usually the next stage. And looking out for weaknesses in the opponent's position, which side he left unprotected, or which square is weak, things like that. Okay? Now we're going to see some fun tactical positions.